so-called romance fraud. To mark Valentine's Day, police and online action groups have issued a warning about the increasingly brazen way in which criminals are seducing their victims before taking thousands of pounds from them. Some fraudsters spend months building up a relationship with people online before persuading them to hand over vast sums of money. One Kent woman has told us how she gave more than £10,000 after she was fooled into a relationship. Piers Hopkirk has our report.
He took me to a 5-star hotel. He said
we had a special connection. It felt like stepping into a movie.
It's the hit documentary that exposes the extraordinary web of deceit spun by a sophisticated romance fraudster.
$20,000, $30,000,
$140,000.
His life depended on me.
But for one woman from Kent, it's a story that's uncomfortably close to home.
He was probably one of the best boyfriends I ever had. He was so attentive, he was so helpful. He was good with my son, but behind the scenes, he was destroying me.
These text exchanges tell some of the story. After meeting the man via online dating, Rachel says she was persuaded to hand over thousands of pounds. She's since won a county court judgment as she tries to get the money back.
My mum had just died. My dad previously died as a single parent. I was very vulnerable and very sad. And he came along, knight in shining armour, and about a year or so later, actually mentioned this business deal, and he needed 10 investors for 10 grand each.
Last year, almost £92 million was lost to romance fraud nationwide. In Sussex, victims lost more than £4 million, one victim alone being defrauded of £350,000. In Kent, victims lost £2.9 million, each fraud netting an average of £10,000. Scammers groom victims for months on end, often conning multiple people simultaneously.
They'll pepper the story with impressive mentionings about money along the way. So when it comes to that point where they request the money, and it can be thousands of pounds, it doesn't seem too out of the ordinary. And unfortunately, these victims by then may be in love with their fraudsters.
The worst thing about spotting romantic fraud is that there will be virtually no signals. If they weren't good at conning you, if they didn't come across as wonderful people, nice people, they wouldn't be good at what they do.
Police forces are trying to raise awareness of what's being called faux-mance. Dating companies too say there are warning signs to watch for.
Not wanting to meet in person or video chat quite quickly. Someone wants to keep holding you, stringing you along and not meeting in person. Red flag, check out if that's a real person. And finally, asking for money. Anyone who asks for money online, huge red flag, question it immediately.
Fraudsters, though, are both cunning and charming, so for many the warning signs go unheeded, and the one thing they're left kissing is their money goodbye. Piers Hopkirk, BBC South East Today.
Well, earlier I spoke to Dan Parkinson from the City of London Police, which takes a national lead on romance fraud. I asked him whether the cases we know about may just be the tip of the iceberg.
Romance fraud in particular is hugely underreported, so the data we've got isn't the full picture, and it is really important that people, no matter how embarrassed they are, they report this.
And I guess, as you've just touched on, there's a lot of emotions involved in this kind of crime. Many people watching might think those that fall victim to it are gullible or naive. Is that how we should think of them?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's very sophisticated, and we've seen victims who've been in contact with offenders for years. So it's really complex grooming that goes on to get people to that situation where they will hand over a huge amount of money. And I think it's absolutely wrong to label people as silly or gullible or naive. And that creates a big barrier when it comes to reporting that people are embarrassed and they shouldn't be.
There will be other people watching who are actually worried right now about a parent, a child, a friend who's involved in an online relationship. How should you approach that with someone who you think is a victim of this kind of crime?
I think you have to approach it quite sensitively, because if this is a crime, the person will genuinely believe they're in a relationship and that they love someone, but there should be a number of red lines that we say, if people are sending away money, if they're transferring money on behalf of other people through their bank accounts, those are things that we would say are indicators that this is a romance fraud. And if anybody's worried and sort of hearing this and thinking, oh, I may be, or I've done that in the past, really they should contact their bank straight away. That's the first thing they should do, because if they've just sent off money, they can get those transactions reversed, and then they should report it to the police via action fraud as soon as possible.
That's really helpful advice. Dan Parkinson from the City of London Police, thanks very much for joining us. Drivers and